What's up, guys? Welcome back to the New Earth Dreamer podcast. Today, we're going to go deep on awakening and healing and what that actually means, and how so very many people who are in that awakening, healing, spiritual space are bypassing a lot. And it's infuriating and it's heartbreaking because so many people are profiting and benefiting and perpetuating this bypassing because people are just out here claiming to be awake and healed, claiming to have the answers. And they have tons of followers and influence and clients and opportunities and all these things. But what they're selling is not what we need. And it's because there's so many fears and so many distortions about what awakening means, about what real embodiment is, of what healing is. And so much of it is performative. So much of it is just surface level. And I do think that a lot of these people are well intentioned. But ultimately, there's a lot of bad advice out there. And my intention in this episode is to speak about all of this with as much respect and compassion as I can, but to be real about where we are not seeing things clearly and where we are falling short. Mm. Mm. So let's start with healing because this is something that kind of drives a lot of people crazy. um, Healing becomes something to complete, or the idea of it's something that never ends, and or something to perform and show like, look, I went through XYZ. Now I have this, and so you should trust me, and I'm healed, and all of these things. As if we shouldn't trust people who are still healing. Like, it doesn't, if you're doing the work to heal and to live from a healed place, it's not something you need to prove. And it's not something you need to be done with. It's just something that you need to understand, because it's not about becoming perfect or always feeling good. And I think a lot of people are finally starting to realize that healing is about a commitment to remembering love. So it's a process. It's a way of being. My way is healing. My way of being is healing. Whatever I'm feeling, whatever my body's going through, whatever presents itself in front of me, my way is healing because I'm committed to remembering love in that moment as much as I can. If I'm the one that is suffering, how can I be love right now? If I'm the one who's hurting, how can I be love right now? How can I have presence for what's hurting instead of pushing it off? If I'm connected to another or I'm sitting with another and they're going through whatever they're going through and they're as aware of it as they want to be or as they're able to be. So, how can I be love in the presence of whoever's in front of me or whoever I'm connected to? It's a it's a process. It's a way of being. And once you get really good at it and it just becomes natural to you, then it's not like, oh, I'm actively healing or I have all this pressure to heal. It's just I'm always being love. And that is what awakening is. That is what awakening is. Awakening is heartbreaking because what it feels like to deepen your compassion and your understanding and your patience and your presence and your trust and your surrender, it feels like your heart's being ripped open. It feels like it's being dug into. It feels like you're breaking down walls. It feels like you're becoming more exposed, more vulnerable, more real. And it hurts. And it's supposed to. And I think so many people lose patience in it. And maybe they get too fixated on healing, which I have certainly done. But at a certain point, I realized healing is just what I do. It's it's just who I am. Because I think to really be awake is to be committed to the truest parts of you. It's it's to love humanity like God loves humanity, like unconditional, infinite love loves humanity. And that is a very uncomfortable and unsettling process because you have to acknowledge how much pain and suffering is here. And you have to become acquainted with it. And to really embody something, you have to experience it on some level. And the pace you go at that is the pace that you're able to, because everyone's got a different life situation. Everybody has different circumstances. Everybody's going through something different. Everybody is awakening and healing at their own pace. You know, some people have families and kids, and they need to have a balance of healing and opening up and practicality in what they're able to do to make sure that their family's taken care of and that they have, you know, good presence and quality time and love with you and to be provided for. It is such a balancing act. None of this is easy. But when people give up on their healing or stay at a certain level of love and compassion and acceptance for people and willingness to understand or willingness to spend time with or willingness to sit with, it's because we have a misunderstanding of healing. And it's because we're afraid that if we open up too much, if we're willing to feel too much, if we're willing to see too much, it's going to be overwhelming or we're going to get stuck in some really painful places. And and that we might not be able to recover or that everything might fall apart. So there's a lot of fear. And it is true. The more that you embrace knowing yourself, healing, awakening, embodying love, being authentic, really authentic, higher self level, source level authentic, without bypassing any of the humanity. And the speed at which you do so, yeah, it can be debilitating, especially when so many people don't know how to be truly safe spaces, truly safe mirrors for all of that range of awakening and healing. It's rare to find people who care that deeply or know how to care that deeply about humanity and about love and about truth and about really trying to see through God's eyes. And when I say God, I just mean God, source, divine, unconditional love, the presence that is with us always in all moments, the love that is everything. I know that word is triggering to some and very misunderstood by many, but we're talking about unconditional love, not a judgmental father figure somewhere else, but divine father, mother, source, God. God's love, God is never seeing you through a lens of shame. God's never ashamed of you. God's never judging and condemning you. God's always understanding you. God's always seeing that when you struggle to show up authentically, it's not a failure on you. You know, when we're falling short in our awakening and our healing, it's because of our humanity. It's because of our wounding. It's because of the places we still hold fear, whether that's with ourselves or with others. And often they reflect each other, right? There's so much distortion in awakening and healing, and so much of it is tied to relationships. Not just romantic, but definitely that as well. But all relationships. You know, so many people think that being awakened and healed means putting up a bunch of boundaries in places that they don't understand, in places that they still don't know how to have compassion and patience, where they don't know how to show up. And they think that that's a really empowering place to be, but it's actually a very isolating place to be. And it's hurtful to people who don't understand what's wrong with them or why you don't love them enough to offer them a space. And some people are very closed off to it because a lot of people are just ashamed or they feel guilty or they're afraid of looking at themselves or looking at certain things. And that's fair. You know, some people just aren't ready. And you can't really offer that space to people who aren't ready, right? But that doesn't mean you don't still love them. You know, if it's family or something like that, and you never see them or you never talk to them or you hold these really harsh opinions of them in some way, you know, somewhere in you, there are still places that you haven't learned to love yet. And this isn't to blame you, but it's to really understand like, am I actually being the love that I know I am? It takes a lot of humility and it takes a lot of being willing to honor the victim in us. So many people bypass the victim because they're like, the victim's not me. And so when they see other people who display their victimhood, who are learning not to be ashamed of it or any of that, it's confusing or off putting. But it's because you haven't really learned how to honor your pain yet. And that means you haven't learned how to honor other people's pain. Honoring the victim in us. No, the beliefs of the victim are not based in truth, right? They're based in distortions. Any place where you thought you weren't worthy of love or you weren't enough or anything like that, obviously those things are not true because that's not how you're seen by God. That's not how you are loved in reality by truth. But at one point, that was true for you. And that victim is just a scared, hurt part of you. So it's not to say, oh, the victim's not real. The victim is very real. You were the victim. We all were. But we were always a victim to the distortions that we believed. And it's our responsibility to honor all of those parts. And that is a messy journey. And that's why to be an actually safe space in the world as an awakened human being, it is to be willing to hold space for all of it, even that which is very uncomfortable, even that which hurts a lot, especially that which hurts a lot. And to not be so quick to write off people or to put up walls thinking that that's a healthy boundary because it's not. It's okay for you to take space when you need space, for you to take care of yourself, for you to find your center again. But it is not okay to abandon that which you don't yet understand and have compassion for. Because there's a reason that the people who still trigger you trigger you. There's a reason that there are certain parts of yourself that you don't know how to sit with yet, that you don't know how to sit in stillness, that you don't know how to be with all of yourself. There's a reason for all of that. And it's not about being perfect again. It's not about being 100% able to do all of that by a certain time or anything like that. But it is to realize that if you genuinely care about love, about existence, about humanity, about embodying your most real and true and beautiful and loving self, then we cannot avoid what's really going on here. And the fact that the majority of people are living in some level of survival and people not waking up or being more open to their healing is not a failure on them. It's not because there's something wrong with them. It's because they're afraid that something is very wrong with them. They're afraid that the truth is going to be very painful. And the truth is painful, but not because it's saying something bad about them or about you. It's because it is very painful to realize how much freer we are to choose differently. It is very painful to realize that so many people are suffering because we've just not seen ourselves clearly this whole time. That there's no real enemy, there's no real war, there's no second power called evil. Evil things are done, but the people who do them are not evil, and they're not possessed by evil. They're taken over by fear, by their own distortions and misperceptions, by their own pain and trauma and wounding. And everyone deserves compassion because it's not their fault that they are the way they are. Everyone is living from a different level of consciousness, and your awareness is only available to you what you're open to. And what you're open to is based on all of the conditioning, all of the unique circumstances that led to a certain point. And the way that those traumas either turn in on ourselves or get expressed outward is also unique based on the conditioning and the upbringing and the beliefs and all the things. And there are a lot of people with a lot of influence in the spiritual and healing spaces who just have not gone to the depths that they need to go to. And they preach a lot of things and say a lot of things that are honestly just incomplete or ignorant or not respectful of people's actual experiences. And it's a lot to carry. It hurts. And to close this episode, this experience, I want to talk about my experience with what my awakening and healing journey has been like, with how it has shifted into what I just talked about. Because I, like a lot of people in the awakening and healing and spiritual communities have been, I started out by learning, by listening to a lot of different speakers and podcast hosts and YouTube videos and books and different advice and wisdom that's out there. And, a lot of it was very, very good. A lot of it was confusing at different times because it's so much to take in. And I think there's a period of time where you just do take in a lot, where it feels right. Like right now, I'm a seeker, I'm a student, I'm a learner. But at a certain point, you have to stop taking in so much. You have to stop consuming so much content and information, and you have to sit and you have to feel and you have to integrate and you have to ground and let yourself kind of reorganize. And certainly, if you can do it with someone else, that makes it a whole lot easier. But in my case, very, I felt very alone for a lot of it. Like I had different friends here and there and different people at different parts of the journey, but I didn't have a consistent, safe, emotional person to, not just emotionally safe, but spiritually safe, meaning they weren't going to dismiss my experiences or my understandings or anything, like just a very open, safe person. I didn't have that mirror. I didn't have that reflection to work with consistently. And so a lot of what I went through alone. And, learning from all those different people, like, especially when you come to trust certain people, you start to listen to a lot of things they say, and you start to think that this is the way. You start to think that this is how you manifest. This is how the universe works. This is how energy works. This is how you embody things. This is how you attract your twin flame or your divine union, or this is how you attract money in abundance. Like, but there's so much just misperception and ignorance in those places still, because they're just speaking from what seems to be true for them. They're speaking from their unique experience and circumstances, and it doesn't take into account, how much deeper in survival most people are than what a lot of those people experienced. And not that they never experienced any pain or suffering or anything like that. Obviously, that's not true. But everything is to different degrees. And I don't think a lot of those people who are still very performative in the spiritual space and the healing and awakening communities and stuff, I don't think a lot of them have been to the depths, or to the depths consistently for a long period of time, that a lot of people are living at, or doing their best to stay just above, with distractions and avoidance and numbing and all these things. And so when you're awakening and healing, you're really only able to get to like that level. But something, when you are really committed to love, and when you are really committed to being that higher self embodied version of you, and to living from that place, there's still a lot of ego there, still a lot of entitlement, still a lot of misperception of reality, a lot of misperception of what actually brings in manifestations, because that's not just about perfecting your energy. It's not about managing and micromanaging your energy. It's about being love, being authentic, being trustworthy as a person. And these people haven't really learned to do that. They're still manipulating people, and just from a place without any shame, because they don't realize the narcissism and the manipulation that's still in there, where they're still avoiding, where they still haven't humbled themselves. And so then they have a certain framework or a certain idea of what has worked for them, but that's not going to work for everyone, because they didn't have the same support system, for example, or they didn't have the same upbringing, or they didn't have the same opportunities, or they weren't willing to be a part of that level of manipulation, even if it was done unconsciously or innocently or anything like that, right? Because I'm not saying that all these people are bad people. I'm not saying that anybody is a bad person. I'm saying that everyone is only operating from a certain level of awareness. But if you really want to have a standard for awakening and healing, it's to have a commitment to love, to unconditional compassion, to a willingness to sit with the uncomfortable things, and to take the time to understand the people who still trigger you and hurt you, and um, that you don't understand yet, that you're still not in a very healed and whole place in relationship to them. And that's not about them necessarily, right? It's not about them doing that work. It's about you doing that work. So at a certain point, especially because I, My dreams in my path is I want to be a leader, a speaker, a guide, a healer, and a healer in the sense of I'm committed to remembering love and embodying love, and to reminding other people that they are that love as well. That's, a healer doesn't heal others through like magic or energy powers and anything like that. It's about the presence. It's about me letting my awareness of love in the present moment be an opportunity for other people to remember that as well. And that's up to their readiness, right? So, not for me to force it or to give too much, but to just hold that awareness of love and that presence, regardless of who or what's in front of me. And at a certain point, though, I realized that a lot of the things that I had learned had made me an unsafe space for certain people in my life, people who I loved, people who I cared about. And it was true that I had anger because I was seeing more clearly my wounds in the past, how I was mistreated, how I was misunderstood or judged or anything like that. So I had pain, and I had pain because as I was going through this, the people around me weren't able to really hold space for what I was going through. And so there was some resentment there because I was like, none of you feel like a safe space either for me and what I'm going through right now. And so I had to learn how to both honor my anger and my pain, and at the same time I had to learn and listen to what other people were saying, and start to look at what their life has been like and the things that they have carried, and realize I was carrying so many of the same things because I loved them, because they were big influences in my life. And because they weren't aware of it or how to heal it, I wasn't aware of it or how to heal it. And it became something that I carried. And so for me to like heal my family, for example, is not about me healing them. It's about me healing my perception of them by understanding what they've been through. And the same goes for any relationships out in the world. I just happen to be at home healing my past with my family so that I can move forward in life without having to carry that in my body, which I was doing in my shoulders, in my back, along my spine, my hips. I was carrying so much. And I was carrying the wounds of being unmet in love, of being abandoned by people in my life emotionally. There was a lot of things that I've been carrying, and I'm still carrying a lot. Like my body still is uncomfortable. There are certain parts of my body that are still healing and learning, remembering how to trust people in relationships. But because I've had this deep commitment to compassion and being as real as I can and honoring pain and loving humanity in this way that has become much more, it's a deeper respect because I've sat with how much hurt has been here in my family and elsewhere, that now I'm starting to have really healthy, loving people enter my life who have a deep respect for me and what I've been through. And that was something that I didn't know how to really have in my life before. But it came from this embodiment, from this deepening, from this surrender. And so many in the spiritual and manifestation communities are trying to just like, how do you make your life great right now? Instead of accepting that we are a healing people and that healing is what we need to be focusing on and understanding clearly in a non performative way. because we need our systems to change. We need our way of being to change. And if we continue to go at the pace that we keep going at, if we continue to try and optimize and become more efficient, more effort, more striving, more achieving, more abundance receiving, but through ways that still fit the old narrative, then we're still bypassing the actual issues with what's going on here and the medicine that this world needs. What we need is more presence, more safe people who are coherent with reality, who are coherent with love. And that can look a lot of different ways. It can have a lot of different frameworks attached to it, but it means that you have simplified, you have integrated, you have oriented around what is actually important, and you've let go of the things that are not so important. And this process is not always fun. It's not always joyful. What we're going through right now is not a dance party. It's not um, pretending to just be happy all the time, or um, only staying high vibe or whatever. Like, all of that is not that there's anything wrong with any of those. Not that there's anything wrong with being happy. Not that there's anything wrong with having fun. Not that there's anything wrong with taking breaks from the heaviness of it. But we can't just avoid the heaviness of it. That's what needs to be transmuted. That's what needs to be loved into coherence. As long as you're avoiding that, you're still not being safe for certain parts of yourself and for many, many, many people. And so, if you really care about the awakening and healing of humanity, if you really care about a new earth, if you really care about a way of being and helping to create a way of being that brings us back into stability and safety and peace and trust with each other, that means we need to slow down. It means we need to deepen our compassion. It means we need to look at and sit with things that we've been afraid to. And it means we need to stop thinking that our worthiness is something that we have to prove, or that it's based on a certain type of entitlement. Worthiness and receiving comes from a very humble place when it's done in a healthy way. It comes from a place of trust and surrender. And it's not always about money. It's about the quality of your presence and your love. It's about the quality and the standard to which you see humanity in the world. It's about your commitment to remembering love and being love here in the present moment, wherever you're at, as much as you can be. I believe that real leaders are doing that work right now. And that may not look very visible or flashy or enjoyable, but it's real and it's what's needed. And all of us are going to have to go through that at some point. All of us are going to have to learn how to be so trusting that we can allow ourselves to fall apart. We can allow certain parts of ourselves to fall apart that need to, so that we can be built back up in truth, so that we can be safe places for other people to do that, so that everyone isn't having to do it alone anymore, because so many are doing it alone. And it's not about saving people, it's about reminding people of what love actually looks like, what love is willing to do to save itself. We are love that has forgotten itself. And this is a joint mission. It's not just save yourself and then do whatever you want. It's let's save each other. Let's remind each other of love. Let's be there for each other in the ways that we're able to. And everybody's able to do that at a different level, at a different capacity. But the most important thing for us right now is our emotional safety, to make sure that people know it's safe to feel their emotions. Men and women. And it's also time for us to start healing together, instead of just men's groups or just women's groups, but joint healing, real healing. Because the idea isn't to have like divine masculines just being the men and divine feminines just being the divine women. It's about all of us realizing that we are whole beings, and that the masculine and feminine is actually one energy. It's just polarity. So our wholeness is embodying the masculine and the feminine. And that is a big reason why, for example, in the twin flame and divine union communities, there is so much distortion around what it means to manifest your person, or who's doing the work and who's not doing the work. We're all needing to do the work to heal our own masculines and our own feminines, but we need each other. We need each other to do that. And we need to stop bypassing and pretending that certain things that arise in us are someone else's. If it's arising in you, it's yours. All right. Your higher self is not playing a trick on you. God's not playing a trick on you. If there is something in you that is arising that doesn't feel good, it is something that you need to integrate and have a healthy relationship with. And so if it's something that keeps coming up and you keep saying, oh, it's not mine, it's not mine, it's not mine, that's bypassing. If it's arising in you, it's arising for a reason. It's something to be loved in coherence. And if you think it belongs to someone else that you're connected to, then maybe it's coming up in you because there's a part of them that you don't understand, that this energy is trying to help you understand. Because all of the energy coming up in you is divinely guided. Everything that arises in you is divinely guided. It's your opportunity to understand that this is coming up because it's time for me to address this. It's a necessary for my journey. It's necessary for my embodiment. Otherwise, it wouldn't be arising. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. And it's not going to be comfortable. But when we stop being afraid of it or stop dismissing it, that's when things can start to transform and move forward in new ways. Awakening and healing isn't something you stop, it's something that you embody. And you just trust the process. Learn to be present. Learn to slow down. Learn to be even more compassionate with yourself and with others. Have a commitment to loving the way that God loves, the way that Source loves. Have a commitment to honoring humanity, having a commitment to honoring your pain and the victim. There are distortions of truth, but every part of you is a real part of you. It's just, are you in a healthy, loving relationship with it yet or not? If any of you are legitimately interested in going deeper on your healing, on your commitment to being your truest and most authentic self, to honoring those hurt parts of yourself, and you need a safe space and a guide to work with, I am available for one on one sessions. I help a lot of people, even people who are struggling financially right now. I offer donation based or even free work with people when it feels aligned. So don't feel like your situation disqualifies you from help, because for a long time I wish there was someone like me who I could have worked with, who would have given me that time, who would have believed in me and wanted to help. I love you guys. We're becoming more real. And I really do believe that a healthy, compassionate, supportive society is inevitable for us. But it's going to take us being real about this process and to really embody the love that we are, to stop selling ourselves short on what that means. I'll see you in the next one.